Have you ever been on a vacation that was so awful that you actually couldn't wait to go home? Well, that's how things start out for this family of tourists here until the people who live on the island start dressing up in disturbing costumes and threatening to eat their flesh. They're trapped for 3 days with no way out. But these freaks aren't the only ones with a deadly secret. And we're here to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the cannibal commune in Getaway. This vacation is about to turn into their worst nightmare. Driving down a country road, we meet this lovable goofball Richard and his family on a sightseeing trip to Sweden. They're visiting the remote island of Salta, where, back 200 years ago, an entire village full of people got stranded and turned to cannibalism to survive. Now, every 10 years, the locals throw a big up festival in memory of the event, and these idiots here are just in time to catch the show, but that right there is about to be their biggest mistake. Before boarding the ferry, they stomp by the small cafe at the docks looking for something to eat, but when the owners hear what they're doing, everything gets deadly serious. He tries explaining that the island isn't a place for visitors, especially during the festival. No matter how much he warns them against it, these four just refuse to get the message. As they're getting aboard the ferry, the assistant reminds them that this is the last boat for 3 days. A short ride later, they arrive at the docks only to find the entire village already gathered around, and they don't look too happy about their surprise visitors. That's when the village elder, Clara, here steps forward, and after learning that they plan to stay for the festival, she tells them that they better just get back on the boat. Luckily, their host, Mats, shows up just in time, leading them to their cabin before the others can scare them off, but they have no idea that this old lady is absolutely out of her mind. Okay, I swear, these tourists never learn. On the bright side, at least it's not the dumb Americans for once, but these idiots don't even realize that they're walking straight into a death trap. You know it's bad when even the owner at the burger place says that you're making a big mistake. It looked like he wanted to kill you just for asking if he had a veggie burger, so if he's warning you about the people on the island, then you better think twice about where you planned your family vacation. What's really messed up is they specifically came to basically make fun of the most traumatic event that ever happened in the village over the last 200 years. And no one who actually lives there even wants them around. Take a place like Point Pleasant, West Virginia, the home of the infamous Mothman. Every year, they host a Mothman festival and encourage people from all over the country to come and visit, seeing it as a good opportunity for their local businesses. The people here could take that approach, but instead, they've made it clear that they don't want any outsiders, and meanwhile, the Smiths are over here treating them all like a bunch of NPCs who are only there for their amusement. It's not just that they aren't welcome, but things can easily turn deadly if they aren't careful. Back at the diner, the kids found a decapitated seagull while they were waiting for their burgers, and even though it's not clear who did it, it's a sure sign that someone dangerous was there, and they could still be around. That's not to mention that these locals have them outnumbered almost 10-1. On a tiny little island with nowhere to run and no boats coming for the next 3 days. When you get on the ferry and everyone's looking at you like that, you might as well just stay on it and go back to the docks where it's safe. But as soon as the old lady steps up and licks your face, I'm sorry, but them's is fighting words, my friend. Either we're throwing hands or I'm taking the loss on the Airbnb and going home. But staying for the rest of the trip definitely isn't an option after something like that. The parents need to think about the safety of their family here and realize that just by coming to the island, they've already offended the people who live there to the brink of violence. It sucks that they're getting beat out of their vacation, but they can always visit somewhere that's a little more tourist-friendly instead. And that's why if it were me, then I'd be getting back on the boat pronto. They're settling in. Mats tells them a big emotional story about how the house used to belong to his mother, only to end it by saying that she was decapitated in the very same chair that Richard is currently sitting in. On that note, the family heads upstairs to pick their bedrooms, where their daughter Jessie here is annoyed that they don't have cell phone service. She's checking out her room when Mats comes sneaking up behind her, and after making some creepy comments, he leaves, telling them all to enjoy their stay, but They're about to realize that this place is even stranger than it seems. A little while later, Jessie gets bored without her phone and decides to take a bath while her parents are cooking dinner. It seems like a nice idea at first, but as soon as she finally gets comfortable, she starts hearing strange noises coming from somewhere in the room. They get louder and louder until she can't ignore it anymore, and getting nervous, she quickly puts on a robe and focuses on this mirror against the back wall, unable to shake the feeling that someone could be watching her from the other side. That night, the family are all in bed when Richard wakes up to notice a strange orange glow coming from the window. Looking outside, they see that it's a group of the locals trying to intimidate them, and fed up, Susan decides to go out there and give them a piece of her mind. Standing in the yard is a squad of about 20 people from the Commune, and all carrying torches and wearing bizarre ceremonial masks. Furious, she starts shouting at them to leave her family alone, but without saying a word, one of them comes forward, dropping a dead forest critter on the steps before the entire crowd silently disappears back to the village. Unsure what this means, they go back inside hoping that it's all just a local tradition, never realizing that Clara is secretly watching them from the woods. And this is only one step of her diabolical plan. With only one day left before the festival, Richard notices that his daughter had some trouble sleeping and asks the girl to share what's been on her mind. Going to the kitchen, she turns on the sink first before telling him about noises in the walls, using the sound of the water to shield their conversation from any eavesdroppers. She's worried that someone's been watching them, but he reassures her that it's probably nothing, with no idea that they're literally being watched on camera at that very moment. Looking for some help, he decides to stop by Matt's place, showing him the animal carcass and asking what it means. But for some reason, the guy keeps playing dumb and acting like he has no idea. Getting frustrated, the man threatens to leave a bad review if they can't fully enjoy their stay, and this seems to get the message across, with Matt's saying that he'll tell the Commune to knock it off. Okay, it's been less than 24 hours into their vacation, and they're already experiencing things that would have any sane person packing their bags. Richard here still thinks that they can believe their host Matt's, but after the way that he's been acting, I wouldn't trust him for a second, and since they can't rely on him or anyone else on this island for help, it means they'll be on their own from here on out. Now, with that being said, it seems like Jessie here is already one step ahead. She's already shown how smart she is by deciding to sleep fully clothed and turning on the sink to cover up their discussion. They're going to need skills like this if they want to make it out alive, and that's why if it were me, the first thing that I'd want to do is find out if someone's actually been watching them. The best place for them to start is that mirror in the bathroom, since Jessie clearly heard noises coming from behind it. It could be a two-way mirror, allowing someone to look in from the other side, but the good news is that there are a few simple ways to figure this out. The difference between a regular mirror and a trick mirror is the thickness of their reflective surface. Two-way mirrors are deliberately designed with a thinner reflective coating so that you can see through from one side, while regular mirrors have a thicker reflective surface preventing any light from getting through. One easy way to test for this is by doing a simple reflection check. Place your fingernail against a mirror and you'll see a small gap between your finger and the reflection because of the thickness of the coating. If not, then that's your sign that you're dealing with a two-way mirror. She can also turn off the lights and then shine the light from her phone towards it at different angles, allowing her to see into the hidden area if she gets it right. If she still isn't sure, then next I'd try knocking on it to see if it produces a hollow sound, and looking around the edges for any unusual gaps or seams that show it can be opened like a doorway. Once we're done, I'd cover every mirror in the house with a sheet just in case, because this prevents anyone from seeing through, and also lets them know if anything's been messed with while they were gone. As long as they're giving in to the paranoia, they'll also want to check the place for any hidden cameras. A phone light works for this too, because if you turn off the lights and slowly shine it around, you might catch the reflection coming off of a camera lens. Pay close attention to objects like smoke detectors, electrical outlets, clocks, or any decorative items that seem out of place, since these are the most common hiding spots. They can also use their phone's camera to check for infrared light emitted from some night vision devices, which will show up as a little glowing spot somewhere in the room. This still leaves the cult to deal with, but with nowhere to run and no boats coming for the next several days, they might need this house as a holdout point if things go wrong. So I'd start by making sure that it was safe first, and then addressing the other problems from there. After settling things with their host, Richard and his family head out for a peaceful hike through the forest, taking in the island's breathtaking views and stopping for a picture with 4 unmarked graves. Alright, anyway, back at the burger shack, it seems like there's been a bit of trouble. Someone absolutely massacred the owner and his wife only minutes after the family left, making 2 victims down with 4 more to go. Detective Forsberg here has a bad feeling that it was the local drunk, Johan, who's back on the loose after serving time in jail. Stopping for lunch, they notice a small boat arrive at the dock, which is strange because there weren't supposed to be any boats for the next 3 days. But the strangest thing is what it's carrying. 4 brand new wooden coffins. I wonder who those could be for. The kids go off to take a swim, leaving Richard and Susan here a chance to sneak back to the house for some alone time. And as for Mats, well, let's just say that he's enjoying the show and leave it at that. Meanwhile, the detective shows up looking for that sketchy dude Johan, interrupting these freaky-ass commune creeps in the middle of their dress rehearsal. Needless to say, Clara here is not too happy to have another outsider meddling in their affairs. And she lies that the guy left the island a while ago in search of more vodka. Realizing that he's not getting anywhere, Forsberg eventually decides to move on, with the old lady making it clear that they don't respect his authority. But he knows all about how these wackos operate, and he's not giving up on the case just yet. Instead of going for a swim like they said, these 2 troublemakers head down to the local diner just to mess with the bowl cut boy, the cook. As usual, he gives them the whole coming here was a mistake routine just as the trio of burly locals cuts off their exit, but when one of them steps to Sam, he chucks a bowl full of tactical sprinkles directly into the guy's eyes. They make a break for the door, but end up crashing straight into a group of masked cultists, carrying the 4 caskets marked English liar, and as they all stand there laughing, the siblings run off in fear. Well, I guess the word fear isn't really the word for it, more like startled amusement. Anyway, it's back to the house they go, where, unknown to them, Mats here is currently lying in Jessie's bed trying on a pair of her underwear. Hearing them coming, he disappears back into the walls just as she gets to her room, but she can tell that something about the bed is different from how she left it. At first, she's worried that it might have been Sam creeping through her things, but he reassures her that he's not the culprit, and looking back to the mirror, she intentionally walks over and breathes a heart on the glass, with Mats freaky-ass licking it right from the other side like he's trying to taste the snozberries at Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. Okay, just when you thought things couldn't get any worse, it looks like everyone on this island wants them dead, and while they're out trying to enjoy the scenery, we've got their host over here getting freakier than Peach Fuzz when he's blocking a doorway. They're still going about their vacation with no idea that there's at least 1 confirmed killer on the island right now. And it doesn't help that Detective Forsberg here is totally incompetent at his job. He thinks that Jordan, the town drunk, is the one responsible for the attacks, but back at the diner, he gave up on trying to find him as soon as the villagers turned him away. His first sign that they're full of shit was when they said that Johan left town for some more vodka. This might seem like a small detail, but don't forget Johan is from Denmark, not here in Sweden. His drink of choice is beer, not vodka, like we've seen every time that he's been around so far. There also weren't supposed to be any more boats coming or going for the next 3 days, so their story that he left doesn't make any sense. At the dock, the assistant took down the names of everyone on board in case of an emergency. Knowing this, the detective could easily check the ship's manifest for undeniable proof that Johan came to the island and never left. Speaking of boats, I don't think there could be a bigger red flag than what the family saw back at the docks. This village was supposed to be totally cut off from the rest of the world, but then one day later, a boat shows up with exactly 4 coffins that are all freshly made? I'm sorry, but what the is this about? They need to start taking this seriously before they all end up dead, and that's why the first thing that they need to do is stop antagonizing the locals. Ever since they showed up at this place, it's like they've been deliberately trying to get on their bad side, so it's time to settle down and stop pissing them off. They don't want to confront them yet either, because this could raise the alarm and escalate things even more. From now on, they need to be sticking together at all times. Splitting up just makes them more vulnerable and could easily lead to a bad situation. Even though they don't have service, they should always have their phones charged and ready in case of an emergency. While they're still pretending that everything's fine, they should start looking for an escape plan, like a boat that they can borrow if they need to get off the island in a hurry, and be ready to defend themselves at a moment's notice if things get any worse. The problem is that they still haven't realized they're even in danger yet, but it won't be long before everything changes. Back in the village, Clara gathers up everyone in the commune with some new ideas for this year's festival. She's been organizing this shindig for a long time, and now that she's getting old, she's worried that this one might actually be her last. So, wanting to go out with a bang, she's bringing back the old tradition of actually sacrificing the tourists. It's something that they haven't done for many years, and a few of them speak up, trying to stop her, but the old lady refuses to listen. They all loved killing in the past after all, and because of the rules on their commune, the only choice is to go along with it. But first, there's one other weirdo who she has to deal with. Later that night, the old woman catches Mats while he's stopping at the local store, saying how he should have known better than to invite outsiders into their village, especially during the week of the festival. The truth is that the elders know all about his perverted schemes, but they let him get away with it because he's from the community. And now it's time for him to return the favor. The man hesitates at first after hearing what she has planned, but just like the others, she isn't giving him a choice either way. So tomorrow night after the festival, they're going to serve the family up like Thanksgiving dinner. As she leaves, she throws him a box of flour to make their guests a batch of special cookies, but they're not the only ones who are in for a big surprise. The very next morning, it's officially time for the festival to begin, and while the locals are getting ready, the tourists are back at the house feeling refreshed after a peaceful night's sleep. Sam's the only one with any complaints because, as a vegan, he's not happy that their only breakfast options are sausages and eggs. Things get weirdly confrontational for a minute when he starts talking smack towards Richard, but the mom steps in and tells them both to play nice, reminding everyone that it's finally time for the big day. The townspeople start heading to the theater first thing after breakfast, taking their places while this googly-eyed ghoul stands there slowly hitting a drum. Once they're ready, Mats goes to check on the family just like they planned, acting like he has good news. Not only are they welcome at the festival, the villagers even saved them all front row seats, but to his surprise, they're already planning to hit the beach for a while first and come back to catch the good parts of the 8-hour festival later on. Stunned, Mats stands there dumbly holding the plate of cookies as the family just walks away, but calling out to them, he makes sure they're going to be back soon, saying how he's going to leave them all a little surprise. Okay, it seems almost impossible that these morons haven't figured out that they're in danger yet, especially with the way their freaky-ass hosts have been acting. I don't know what would concern me more, the obvious warning signs that they aren't welcome here, or the sudden change where now everyone's acting completely normal. When they first got here, these people wouldn't let them go 10 minutes without some kind of threatening costume show. But now, overnight, and for absolutely no reason, they want to act all friendly and treat them like VIPs at the festival? That's the most obvious setup for getting Midsommared that I've ever seen. They might still be completely oblivious, but sooner or later, something's going to make them realize that they need to get the hell out of there. And no matter how relaxing the vacation, it's always better to know what you'd do in an emergency before it's too late. When they eventually get back to the house, they're going to find Matt's surprise cookies on the table in a way that's incredibly suspicious. For some reason, he's dead set on them eating these 4 specific cookies as soon as possible, which should be their first clue that something is wrong, and hopefully by that point they're smart enough to actually recognize the danger here and avoid falling for his trap. With that being said, immediately showing that they're suspicious would still be a big mistake. The commune is made up of mostly older members, and it seems like only Clara here actually wants to go through with their plan. Knowing this, the situation isn't totally hopeless if they end up in a fight, but considering how heavily outnumbered they are, they should really keep the cult thinking that they don't know any better for as long as possible. Without packing any of their personal belongings, they should take their phones, a warm jacket, and anything else that they might need to survive, and act like they're going out for an afternoon hike. While the commune is still busy with the festival, what they're really going to do is start looking for a way off this island. The ferry still isn't coming back until the next morning, but we've seen a few private boats around the island that could work, like the one that brought the coffins or sailboats they're using for the big show. That would be the ideal way out of here, but even without a vehicle, they could try putting together some kind of makeshift flotation devices instead. The best way to do this would be to use an empty plastic container, furniture cushions that are wrapped in plastic, or some solid wooden furniture, which are all easy to come by and buoyant enough to support their weight. Then all they have to do is jump in the water and let the current carry them to safety. The show kicks off with some definite Midsommar vibes, as a line of villagers wearing robes and crowns made out of flowers descends from the top of the stairs, approaching a group of 4 English soldiers who are waiting for them on stage. The officers present their leader with a giant golden egg as the crowd erupts in a bunch of boos, symbolizing how their ancestors sold the island for their own gain. And meanwhile, back at the cabin, Mats sneaks inside as soon as his guests are far enough away. Standing in for the villagers, Clara gives a big dramatic performance of how the community suffered under the new laws, all while somebody in a giant goose costume keeps walking by and laying golden eggs that he quickly shoves in his pocket. Finally, it gets to the part where the villagers had to begin eating dead bodies in order to survive, and while they're reliving the most traumatic experience imaginable, the tourists are over here just having a pleasant swim in the lake. Later on, they eventually return to the cabin and find that surprise Mats mentioned waiting on the kitchen table. It's a plate of homemade cookies. They immediately decide to dig in for some cookies and tea, but this plate of sweets won't be the only surprise that they'll be getting today. The play goes on with the village chief having second thoughts about turning on his people, but when the soldiers pay him off with another giant egg, he can't resist taking the deal. And old lady Clara finally kicks the bucket. In the end, they arrest the 4 soldiers and tie them up in front of the coffins, with the old lady cutting their necks as they reach the grand finale. Meanwhile, back at the house, everyone passes out within minutes of eating the cookies. Mats comes in to get them looking like an absolute sicko, and without making a sound, he quietly sneaks upstairs dressed in Jessie's stolen underwear and lies down next to her in the bed. But just when things are getting as creepy as they can get, that's when the whole situation changes. All of a sudden, the girl's eyes shoot open, revealing that she was never asleep, and neither was anyone else in her family. He might have thought he was in control, but Mats here just walked straight into their trap, pulling out ginormous knives as they give him a second to cower in fear, only to start stabbing the absolute crap out of him until the entire bedroom is covered in his blood, making 3 victims down with an entire island more to go. While the villagers are still at the festival pretending to sacrifice the tourists, the family is back at the cabin getting ready for their next kill. You see, they didn't come here for a weekend getaway, or even just to kill Mats. They're actually a team of 4 heavily armed serial killers who do this just for fun. And they're not stopping until they slaughter everyone on the island. Okay, I guess these village creeps just found the only people in all of Sweden who are more deranged than they are. They had me worried for a second there, but I'm happy to see this turned out to be a wholesome family vacation after all. As for this commune of elderly cannibals, I've got some bad news for you freaks. It looks like you all just f***ed up. Now, Clara, you were right about one thing. You really should have kept these tourists off the island after all. Maybe if you weren't so busy plotting to eat them, then you could have put the information together. Getting them arrested would have spoiled your weird little festival, but it also would have saved countless lives from your own community. Because as you're about to find out, this whole time you thought you were the predators, it turns out that you were actually the prey. Speaking of predators, it looks like there's one less on the island now thanks to Richard's family here, so even though they're a bunch of killers, guess they aren't all bad. Hopefully they at least got to enjoy one last waffle before the end, because you commune creeps have seriously fucked up. In the forest, they encounter a group of the village elders heading home from the ceremony and start absolutely tearing them to shreds, all while Run to the Hills by Iron Maiden plays in the background. I have to say, pretty fucking metal. One of them manages to get away and warn the others, but by then it's already too late and everyone scrambles for safety as the family starts slicing, stabbing, and dagger punching their way through the entire community one creep at a time. The kids are still raring to go, so while they take off to continue the bloodbath, the parents decide to take a quick break. Their next stop brings them to the island's radio tower, where they're planning on cutting the communications so that the locals can't call for help. They decide that Sam will pretend to cry while his sister knocks on the door. Sure enough, this moron here instantly takes the bait, opening the door and telling them to come hide from the monsters, only to get stabbed repeatedly with a massive knife for her troubles. They even stop to take a selfie as she lies there bleeding on the ground, and the craziest part is that these two are actually getting bored. But their night of fun isn't even close to being over yet. Sven here eventually catches up with Clara in the woods, who tells him that she's going to look for their buddy Mats. Heading to the radio station, he finds the place absolutely destroyed by the kids and quickly fires off 2 flares into the sky as a distress signal. The red glow provides the perfect romantic lighting for Richard and Susan's little mid-massacre date. As luck would have it, the authorities are too preoccupied with the other distress calls to send any help. Stalking them from the woods, the family watches as the survivors from the village start gathering back at the Wahoo, patiently waiting for as many of them as possible to show up before they strike again. Meanwhile, inside, Sven starts barricading the door as a group of costumed cultists come creeping out from the shadows, asking their leaders what they should do. He wants to get out of there while they still have a chance, but the old woman is still dead set on sacrificing these psycho tourists for their ritual. That's when they hear Richard knocking on the front door. Okay, forget the family, it looks like this just turned into a survival scenario for the cult creeps themselves. With no cell service and the radio station destroyed, there's no way for these people to call for help. The flares should get somebody's attention, but there's no telling how long it's going to be before they get here, so they'll need to hold out here in the barn for as long as possible. The first thing that you'd want to do in this situation is immediately barricade the doors with any heavy furniture that you can find, like the benches and tables scattered all around the barn, or even tie the doors shut with a rope or some chains. This should buy you some time to get ready for the next attack. The good news is that they only have hand-to-hand weapons, no long-ranged options, and they're only normal humans with no special powers, so they can still be hurt or even killed if necessary. I'd grab a makeshift weapon like a piece of broken furniture or a farm tool here in the barn that gives me some decent reach, and ditch the costume so that it won't slow me down. Next, climb towards an elevated area so you'll have the high ground advantage, or position yourself in the middle of the barn an equal distance away from the doors. That way, you'll have the most room to work with. So after escaping the barn, I'd double back to the stage and get away on one of those sailboats while they're still busy killing everyone else. While her husband creates a distraction, Sven goes around back and starts begging to be let in. The others rush to help her, and seeing her opportunity, Clara goes to escape out the front, only to be stabbed straight through the gaps in the door by Richard's giant knife. Furious, Sven grabs a sword from the wall and decides to return the favor, piercing Richard straight through both sides of his mouth. But it's just a flesh wound for both of them, and he immediately kicks in the door even more blood-crazed than before. Grabbing Clara, they quickly take cover in a closet just as the family finally breaks in, and while they watch from their hiding place, the killers start brutally massacring these costumed cultists like it's all just fun and games to them. The golden goose gets his beak sliced off by Susan's razor, and even Bowl Cut Boy shows up at the worst possible moment, only to get decapitated by Jesse a split second later. Last but not least is this poor little possum who gets the group stabby treatment, just like Matt's back at the cabin. And the family moves on without ever noticing that Clara and Sven are still hiding in the closet just a few feet away. Somewhere on the mainland, Detective Fossberg wakes up to an urgent call from his assistant saying how the island is literally burning to the ground. At first, he thinks that it might be a prank call, but after realizing that it's serious, he tells them to get the boat ready so he can make his way out there. Over back at the Commune, the parents are relaxing next to a big bonfire made out of their victims' dismembered bodies. It's a peaceful way to end the night until the kids show up, and Sam here immediately starts complaining like he's been doing the whole time. Staying calm for once, Richard tells him to knock it off, but the little twerp just won't quit, and after finally deciding that he's had enough, the old man randomly hauls off and shanks the dude, straight in the throat. As he lies there dying in front of them, we learn that these four actually aren't a family at all. They're just a group of like-minded lunatics who get together every year or so to massacre another isolated town. Richard here had been fed up with this guy's for a while, but this trip was the last straw, and the others are just as annoyed that they have to find a new brother now that he's gone, telling him that that was not cool. The girls joke around about whether or not they forgive him for a moment before immediately going back to to their goofy family antics, leaving Ian, aka Sam, with the other bodies as they head back to the house. Only Sven and Clara here are left as he tries to stop her one last time, but the old woman is still hell-bent on completing the ritual, and there's nothing that he can do to talk her out of it. Knowing that it's her last ceremony as the leader, he reluctantly gives in to her demands, grabbing his shotgun as they wait to ambush the family when they return to the cabin. There's just one problem with their little strategy. These dumb leave all the lights on, so the family sees that their sneak attack is coming from a mile away. Instead, they quickly duck into Matt's house, where they can see the two villagers waiting for them thanks to the pervert's hidden cameras. And Richard finds a secret tunnel that leads right back to their crib. Needing a plan, they decide to send Jessie in as a distraction while her pops sneaks around through the tunnel, believing that the cultists still don't know that they're the killers. But it's not going to be as easy as they think. Okay, there's only 2 of these creeps left to go before this cult is out of business for good. But the family of killer tourists is making a crucial mistake. They're assuming that Clara and Sven here are just 2 more unlucky victims, when in reality, these 2 are actually just as dangerous as they are. Using someone as a distraction won't work because they're just going to attack them on sight, and after seeing that Sven has a boomstick, they shouldn't risk getting into an open confrontation because he can easily take the 2 of them down before they can even retaliate. Instead of going straight for the front door, someone should sneak up to the house and cut the power first. This makes it harder for Sven to get an accurate shot, and easier for them to sneak up on him, which helps cancel out his much more powerful weapon. It also gives them the chance to use the night vision cameras to their greatest potential. Without cell phones or a radio, they can't directly speak to each other if they split up, but what they can do is have the 2 of them sneak in from different angles at the house, while the third stays back and watches the cameras. If they get near a room where there's danger, the person watching can go to the window and start shining their flashlight, using it as a warning sign for their friends inside, while also possibly distracting one of these creeps and leaving them open for an easy kill. Once Sven's out of the picture, the old lady Clara shouldn't be that much to deal with. Actually, I think the most difficult thing would be figuring out how they're going to explain all of this to the police when they show up, but that's something that they've practiced many times before. So after psyching himself up on the porch, Jessie enters the house pretending to be injured, only for Sven to immediately spin around and blast her square in the chest with the shotty. Somehow, still alive, she starts panicking and comes up with a story about how Matt's actually killed her dad and brother, trying anything just to buy herself some time. Well, lucky for her, it seems like these 2 don't know that they're the killers yet after all, and Sven splits off to search the rest of the house, leaving her with the creepy old lady who's still hungering for some human flesh. Just then, Susan runs up and starts slamming on the door. Confused, she unlocks it and lets her come right in, thinking this is about to be an easy kill. But little does she know that it's all according to their up plan. Upstairs, Richard sneaks in through some hidden tunnel, leaving the secret door behind the mirror wide open as bait. After discovering Matt's dismembered body neatly tucked into one of the beds, he hears a noise from the other side of the room and finds the dad there pretending to be hurt. All of a sudden, Richard jumps up and slashes his throat as soon as he gets close, but while he's standing there admiring his kill, Sven ups the boomstick and completely blows off his right hand as payback. Horrifically injured, but seeming like he's not even remotely fazed by it, the dad staggers downstairs and into the kitchen, where a concerned Clara is standing guard over his family. His wife and daughter immediately start cracking jokes when they notice that he's missing a hand, but he tells them that it's way too soon for that, as they start to turn their attention back to the old woman. The whole time that she thought she was hunting them, they were really the ones hunting her. Realizing this doesn't change her plans though, because she's still completely obsessed with sacrificing these 3. So as the girls get to their feet and start closing in, she slowly starts backing up towards the knives on the counter. All of a sudden, Clara spins around with the knife held above her head as she prepares to fight them to the death. But then from absolutely out of nowhere, a shot goes off as her head explodes into 1,000 tiny pieces like a gore-filled balloon. Who could it be but old Detective Fosberg, showing up just in time to save the day. Stunned, the family turns around wondering what the hell just happened, but quickly go back to their usual act when they realize that he doesn't suspect a thing. Leading them to the dock, they quickly hop aboard his boat and speed out of there while the entire island burns in the background. But there's one villager who's actually still alive. It's Johan, the drunk. Waking up, he's incredibly surprised to see a boat full of soldiers headed this way, and starts trying to fast walk out of there before they show up. But as soon as they see him running, they immediately pull out their weapons and gun him down without a moment's hesitation. With everyone on the island officially wiped out, it looks like this family of freaks got away with it yet again, so let's just hope that their next slaycation doesn't come to a small town near you.
Get Away. Getaway. Interesting movie, interesting characters, interesting plot, and I'm glad we got a chance to cover it here on How to Beat. Now, you guys have to let me know if there's anything you would have done differently down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and check out that How to Beat playlist for more videos just like this one. I'm the Guy. We'll see you in the next video, and have a damn good day.